And Merry Christmas to everyone. Tonight is December 10th. It's 6:05, and it's my pleasure to call to order the regularly scheduled City Council meeting. We'd like to invite everyone at this time to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we have the roll call, and our beloved Mrs. Zito is at home with ice. She can't get down here. So who will be doing the roll call?
I guess I will do that.
All right, Mr. City Manager.
So, Councilmember Borelli,
Here.
Hagan,
Here.
Patton,
Here.
Mayor Thomas,
Here?
and Councilmember Wilkins.
Here. So, would like to welcome everyone that's watching from home, and thank everyone for being here in the audience tonight. We have a good-looking group. We are now on item 3, announcements and presentations to the public, and we have quite a few exciting items here. To start us off, I would like to give a big thank you to our Public Works crew for helping all of us deal with the ice and the snow and the crazy conditions this last week. You've done a wonderful job keeping our city running and safe, and I'd like to echo that to our police department, who has just kept everything under control, and we really appreciate that. For those of you who had the pleasure of joining the city for the fabulous tree lighting ceremony and then the Hangtown Parade, it was a very festive weekend a couple weeks ago in Placerville. And just thank everyone for coming out to that. Big thank you to the Mountain Democrat and our city crews, our Park and Recs department, our Public Works department, our police department for supporting the parade. It was just a wonderful, wonderful day, and the weather was fabulous. So that was kind of the best of what Placerville has to offer, true community. For our first real announcement, I'd like to turn it over to the chief because we have a very exciting announcement. No. Good evening, Chief Heller.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Yeah, on Tuesday of this week, the department was notified that we placed #1 in both the state and the nation for National Night Out this past summer.
#1 in the nation for National Night Out. Is that awesome?
And that's in communities under a population of 15,000, which there were, I think, at least 48 other contestants. And so in the coming weeks or month, we'll be presented with a cup for #1, and then I guess it's up to all of us to defend that cup next year.
We could defend that, no
Okay.
problem. Well, a big thank you to all your crew for making that possible, and to the community for supporting that. That's just wonderful. Would also like to announce that the ice rink, the Hangtown Holiday Ice Rink, will be opening on December 14th, which is right around the corner, and will go through January 5th. And this is just a huge thing for our community, with a big thank you to the Placerville Drive Business Association. They have worked tirelessly to put this on. The fairgrounds, it'll be at the fairgrounds in front of the Forney building, and they are donating that space to our community, which is amazing. And lots of our businesses and residents have supported it financially to make this possible. So it's just going to be a wonderful family activity to run through the new year, with a New Year's Eve festivities for our youngsters and for adults, and just a real family fun activity here in the heart of Placerville. So look forward to that. Also, I have some information on the Paint What Matters program, and I know everyone's been, anxious to get some information, and it's been slow coming. We've been working with Benjamin Moore, and we finally have a little bit more clarity, so I'm happy to get that out there. There will be a press release. Press release went out going out tomorrow, December 11th. So basically, Benjamin Moore is planning to revitalize Placerville in April 2014. So we're now in the middle of winter, no need to do it now, so we're looking for a spring fix-up. And The area that they're looking at is basically Sacramento Street to Bedford, which is the heart of our downtown district. And we are working with Benjamin Moore to offer a discount voucher program for properties that want to participate outside those areas. So we're working on that. We've also had a community volunteer, Matt Boyer, who's come forward and is working just hand in hand with Lisa Crummett. I take my hat off to both of them. They've been working very, very hard with Benjamin Moore to build on this program, because we see it as a catalyst for other improvements that we can come together as a community. A date that I'd like you to all put down is January 30th. Benjamin Moore has agreed to fly out from, I believe it's New Jersey, and we're going to be doing a community meeting here in Town Hall on January 30th. I think it's around 6 o'clock. We'll let you know of a time a little bit later. But what we'll be talking about the specifics of the program. It'll be a chance for you to, to talk to the reps and see exactly, what's going on. Right now, Benjamin Moore is going to be coming from now till January 30th. They're going to be contacting property owners within that district and doing lead testing on all of the buildings. And from what they determine from the lead testing will determine the scope of the project. They've realized that we have a very historical community, and they're wanting and needing to respond appropriate to that. So they're having to take some extra steps that they don't have to take in other communities. So that's what's going on right now. So stay tuned, and there will be more information in the Mountain Democrat as time goes on. So that's exciting. All right. Any other announcements, Mr. Morse? Oh, yes, you do have one. Thank you. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just want to bring to your attention, and Dave, if you can pull this up, and I want to thank Stan Morris, who is in our audience tonight, I noticed. He's the one that helped put this together. We have a new feature on our website, which is our historic markers inventory. If you go to our website and go under Our City, and then it is Placerville City History, you'll come to this page, and then you can click on the bottom on the left where it says Placerville Historical Markers. Wow. This is actually the spreadsheet that gives you a description of all the markers and that are here. And if you go back to the previous page, Dave, if you can go back to that. There we go. If you go, you can actually drag that map up, and you can see there's a dot for each of the markers. They're kind of clustered, as you can see in that area. You can expand that and make it bigger. You can, Dave, if you could go to one of those blue dots and click on those. Any one of them is fine. That's fine. Whoop. There we are.
It doesn't want to do it.
Carl's just glad he's not listed on this, he said.
Probably need to maybe click your mouse once, Dave, and that'll make that hand go away. Now click. Now drag it up. There you go. There you go. Now just click. And then,
wow.
So you can see, and then there's a section that says more information. If you click on that more information, Dave, right where you're at almost, above, right there. Then that'll take you to a web page that'll explain that specific marker. It'll talk about it.
Wow.
So depending on what they are, this one actually takes you back to the original inventory. Some of them will take you to an actual web page and get you can, there's, Stan, can you tell me how many total? I forget the number. Almost 1,500 historical markers
my word.
that are on this inventory. So it's really interesting to go to and look at. So I want to make the public aware of it, council aware of it. That is up on our website. You can go to those and look at them. And again, I want to thank Stan Morris, and tell me who your helper was.
D. Owens?
D. Owen,
D. Owens.
thank you. That helped, that put this together and then gave it to us to put on our website. So.
What a
thank
gift
you.
that is to our community. Thank you so much. That's incredible. We greatly appreciate having our history highlighted in such an accessible way for the public. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. With that, we move on to item 4, closed session report. City Attorney Driscoll.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas. Tonight in closed session, the council, in unanimous vote with Councilmember Patton not present, rejected the claim of Jerry Sherrod. Other than that, there was no reportable action.
All right, thank you. And with that, we're on item 5, adoption of the agenda. I do have 2 items. Items 6.1 and 6.2, we are going to continue till the next agenda. This is recognition of new department employees and certificates of recognition. Those people could not make it into town because of the icy conditions. So we're going to table that. So are there any other changes to the agenda?
I'll move for the adoption.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adopting the agenda with the proposed changes?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Opposed? No. All right. And with that, we have always a pleasurable activity, and this is the Mayor's Beautification Award for 2013. And what we do is throughout the year we highlight projects, whether residential projects or commercial projects, that have been developed in our community that highlight our unique sense of place. And then at the end of the year in December, we choose one of those projects throughout the year for an annual Mayor's Beautification Award. And it is recognized on this perpetual plaque that hangs here in Town Hall. It's a gorgeous plaque that says, recognizing projects that enhance the beauty of Placerville and promote our community. And in 2011, it was the W.F. Hayward Company building. In 2012, it was the Coffee Depot that our own Peter Wolf, sitting right in the back, designed, which was fabulous. And then this year, it is my extreme pleasure to give the 2013 award to Precision Eye Care. Dr. Morel and are you in the audience? Yes. Yeah. Please come forward to the podium. Good evening.
Hi, thank you.
We're delighted you're here, and I know when we gave you the monthly award, you were sick and you could not attend. So we're delighted that you're here this year.
Oh, thank you.
And I think why I selected your project is all of us maybe remember the rundown gas station that was an absolute eyesore to Lower Main Street. And you saw tremendous potential in that building. And to me, that is a recognition of having the vision to see potential wherever we're looking. Because
Well, thanks.
what you did to that building is just wonderful. And it really is.
What an enhancement.
What an enhancement to that part of town. It really is. And before I present you, what we have is we have a gorgeous plaque that you can have in your office that says Mayor's Beautification Award, Precision Eye Care 2013, with their city seal on it. And with gratitude for investing in our community, for having your life work here, and
Well, thank you.
improving the look of our town. So,
Great.
thank you so much.
I drove by today, and it looks like it's a good thing we didn't have to meet down there. You're really snowed in, aren't you?
Well, I just want to thank everybody. I really enjoy working here in Placerville. See a lot of wonderful people, and the days actually go pretty quick down there. But yeah, it took a lot of driving by that place to really picture it in the number sketches, but I'm glad it worked out pretty good. And I know Phil Paca did a lot with the drawings and color schemes and stuff, and I guess he's down to Davis right now. So, but anyway, thank you very much.
Okay. And I understand there's an apartment up on the top, isn't there? So it's an example of mixed use in the city of Placerville.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a one-bedroom, 1.5 bath, and came out very nice. We're trying to decide now to do it as either a vacation rental or leasing apartment, so I'm kind of leaning towards leasing annually right now.
Well, how unique. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Morrill. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
for coming tonight. I think it's appropriate that a vision specialist saw a clear vision, had a vision for that property. I think that's very appropriate. Oh. And now we're on item 6.4. And this is another really, really special thing that we do every year. I think one of the most unique aspects of our city is that so much of the work of our city is done by the local people that live and make their homes and their lives here. And that's our citizens committees. We could not have the services that we have without your dedicated work. And tonight is a time for us to highlight all the men and women that pour their time and their talents and their heart into improving our community. And it's nothing short of remarkable to think that our citizens committees, they beautify our town, they preserve our history and our unique sense of place, they oversee our infrastructure, and they help, cut the costs of our utilities for our residents and our businesses. Our citizens direct how we develop, how we grow economically, and what opportunities we have for fun and recreation. That pretty much sums up life. And all that is done by the people that live and work in our town. And a lot of you are here tonight, and some of you can't make it or are watching at home because of the weather. And we just want to extend our deepest gratitude for all your efforts. What you do makes a tremendous difference to all of us, and we're very, very grateful. And so what I would like to do is we're going to be doing a little back and forth here, and it's our staff dedicates countless hours to supporting our citizen committees, and I know the council would like to express our gratitude to our staff for your time in helping make this possible. And so our first advisory committee we'd like to highlight is the Placerville Economic Advisory Committee, and the staff liaison is City Manager Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll speak briefly to this one. Pierre Rivas helps me with this, and we both staff this one together. But I'm not going to say a lot. Each of us staff members are going to say a little bit about each of our committees. I'm going to reserve most of my comments, though, because we have an item on the agenda tonight which outlines really what the work is of PEAK over the last year. And so that is our economic development plan. For those of you who are planning to stay for the rest of the meeting, you'll get to see that later on our agenda. And I think it's a tremendous amount of work that the committee has done. I want to thank each one of them because each one of them has provided input and been essential to the completion of our economic development plan that we have put together. So I want to thank them. With that, I'll ask the mayor to announce their names. Unfortunately, I'm looking out there, none of them were able to make it tonight. All right. So I won't be able to give them their certificates, but we will get them to them later. So. All
right. So serving on that committee is Kevin Brown, Leonard Grado, John Clarici, John Muser, Chris Payne, Deborah Miller, and Laurel Brentbaum. So please, let's give them a round of applause for all their work. As we will see later, they have worked tirelessly this last year and really have some fabulous accomplishments. Our next committee, our Measure H committee, this is another really special committee that has done amazing job in making sure that your water rates are going down and that our infrastructure is improving. And so, Mr. Warren, you are the staff liaison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Can you hear me okay?
Get a little closer, please.
A little closer.
Thank
How's
you.
that? Okay. So just as a recap for the Measure H committee, they met 7 times this year. And during that time, they reviewed and commented on 4 sets of financial statements. They evaluated and commented on the status updates on all water and sewer CIP projects. They reviewed and commented on revenues, expenditure fund balance forecasts for the Measure H fund, sewer enterprise fund, water enterprise fund in preparation for your 12-13 budget development. They also evaluated and commented on proposed sewer and water CIP projects for this fiscal year. They also recommended 7 new projects throughout town, primarily water projects, and I won't go through all of them, but they were actually adopted all by the City Council. They also analyzed the existing sewer charge discount program and recommended that the council increase the discounts for car washes, hospitals, hotels, motels, markets, mortuaries, movie theaters, rest homes, restaurants, schools, and service stations. It's also important to note that members of the Measure H Sales Tax Committee began serving on the newly formed Ad Hoc Parking Advisory Committee. We met for the first time in November. to evaluate and make recommendations on the operating and infrastructure needs of the downtown parking district. And I would like to personally thank the members of the committee for their dedication and service. I would also like to thank Dennis Thomas, owner of Robinson's Pharmacy, and Sheila Hill, owner of Powell Steamer, for their willingness to serve on the Ad hoc Parking Advisory Committee as well. And that's all I have to report.
I'll pass your thanks on.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. A lot of nuts and bolts work and some amazing accomplishments. I see one member of the Measure H committee. Mr. Edwards, would you please stand up, and anyone else on the Measure H committee? As I'd like to read off their names. Oh, yeah, there's Elizabeth. Fabulous. Thomas Cupson, Tony Granados, Susan Rodman, Elizabeth Zangari, and Art Edwards, who are standing here tonight. So thank you so very much for your work. You just make a tremendous difference in ensuring our citizens that their money is well spent. So really appreciate it. Okay, great. And actually, I should have had you come up to the podium, I'm sorry, because we do have certificates of appreciation for you. Thank you, Dave, for passing those out. Next, we have our Historical Advisory Committee. And this is always a very important committee to ensure that we retain our unique sense of place and celebrate our history in everything we do. And couldn't do it without your expertise. Mr. Rivas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Typically, the Historic Advisory Committee meets at least once, or at least they attempt to meet at least once per month. During the past year, they reviewed 5 different development applications that either involved an historic structure or was a development proposal that was located within an historic district. But I think the primary accomplishment that they did this year was in the preparation of an application for the Preservation America designation. And this, of course, the council knows, we were designated a Preserve America community. And I think that really was all due to the efforts of the Historic Advisory Committee.
Wow.
So I want to report that.
That's a tremendous accomplishment. Yes. Let's give them a round of applause for that. Yes. Can I please ask the Historical Advisory Committee to come forward, and I will read off your names for those people at home that are watching. We have Lanny Hardy, Bruce Harkey, who's coming forward, Joanne Rogers, Michael Saragosa, and Mr. Theatrical Peter Wolf. Yes. Oh, we greatly, greatly appreciate all of your efforts, and just thank you so much for helping us celebrate our historical past. Thank you. Then we have the Planning Commission, which ensures that we are developing appropriately to highlight our historical assets as well. And once again, Mr. Rivas, you're up.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Planning Commission typically meets twice per month, and they've accomplished quite a bit during the past year. They reviewed and provided they decided on 5 conditional use permits, 6 site plan reviews, 4 zone or general plan amendments, which were a recommendation to the City Council. They did 1 general plan consistency application and 1 zoning interpretation. But I think some of the major things that they worked on, of course, was the Marshall Way site plan review for the solar canopy shade structure. Another thing they did, just to highlight the zoning interpretation, was for the teen center, where they determined that a teen center was an appropriate use under a conditional use permit in the business professional zone. And then last but not least, they've been tirelessly working on an update on the development design guidelines through numerous workshops. So, and that's still an ongoing process. We hope that the Planning Commission will complete that effort, and we'll have a recommendation to bring to the council, hopefully by next spring.
That's exciting. I know we're all anxious for that. That's a lot of work, my goodness. At this point, I'd like to invite the Planning Commission to stand up and come to the podium. I see Mr. Lowry in the audience. Are you representing tonight? Yes. That's Mr. George Lowry. And joining him is also Brian Briggs, Michael Drobish, Michael Friend, and Les Russell. So George, on behalf of you and the rest of the guys on the Planning Commission, we just greatly thank you for your efforts, and I know we all look forward to your design guidelines and all the other projects that you help our community develop. So thank you so much. And now Community Pride. Boy, this is a citizen committee that goes way, way back, and just has tremendous benefits that have bloomed year after year for our community. And Mr. Ewell, you have the honor of our wonderful Community Pride.
Bloomed is a very good choice of words. Community Pride, they also meet once a month officially, but then they also conduct work parties throughout our community, in our community gardens and spaces where we have artwork. And this is the most passionate group of people, and their motto is kind of to preserve the grace and charm of Placerville, and they're just doing an outstanding job of it. In my tenure with the city, I've never seen our gardens look better than they do right now, and their efforts are contagious. We have more volunteers now than we've ever had helping us in our gardens throughout town. In addition to that, they've been instrumental in getting our monument garden on the corner of Bedford and Main Street off the ground, and getting the design work done for that, and reaching community consensus on what should go into that particular site. And now they're well into their fundraising efforts to make that vision a reality. And two of the main players are here in the audience tonight, and Kathy and Deb are two of the mainstays of that group, and they're the rocks that keep it going, and I really appreciate all their effort, and it shows in our community. So thank you, ladies.
So Kathy and Deb, please stand up, and any other members of Community Pride in the audience, and please come forward. And joining Deb and Kathy is Tim Davis, Josette Johnson, Kathy Lishman, of course, former mayor and original Community Pride, Cynthia, okay, help me out, Kathy. Cynthia Pazziola. Oh, I like that. That's fun to say. Of course, Deb Power and Christine Thiel. So thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, our dedicated Park and Recreation Commission that oversees just all the fun stuff in town and ensures that we have places to gather and to enjoy our children in sports and this wonderful recreation that is abounding in this community. So, Mr. Ewell.
This is definitely a fun group. Recreation Parks Commission meets once a month, and they're advisory to our Recreation and Parks divisions, and they help us with establishing rules and policies for all of our programs and services. Some of the major things that got accomplished within the last year is our gift program, where they helped staff develop a fundraising mechanism where community members now have an opportunity to donate park benches, swing sets, drinking fountains, just all kinds of different park amenities, and it's really been successful. In the last year, we've already installed over 7 benches, and we just got another donation for a table just last week. So that project is really taking hold, and we're making a lot of site improvements that otherwise wouldn't be made. An enormous amount of the time over the last 10 months has been working with the community on our new park rules ordinance. The Recreation Parks Commission was instrumental in reaching consensus on some of those more contentious items that are now in our new ordinance, and they're in the process of helping staff publicize the new park rules and helping with signage and whatnot. So I just thank all of them. There's a few here in the audience tonight. Jackie No, who's the chair of our committee, and Andrew Matthews is also in the audience tonight, and we couldn't do it without him. So
Please stand up.
Thank you.
Everyone on the Park and Recs Commission. Jackie. And so joining Andy and Jackie is Ryan Gray, Jerry Barton, of course, Andrew Matthews, Jackie No, Peter Nolan, and Richard Zito. And that was no small task. That park ordinance was no small task, as well as the gift program. And just thank you so much. What a difference you make in our community. So once again, I'd like all of our committee members to stand up while we once again show our gratitude to you. So. We appreciate you braving the cold and icy weather tonight to be recognized. Well, it's wonderful. All right. Well, with that, we move on to item 7, public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the Placerville City Council. Please come to the microphone and state your name for the record. And you have about 3 minutes or so to come forward. And folks are, Kathy, we have some exciting, yes, good evening, Sue and Hollis. Hello.
You know, I was just thinking about this, Holly. This is the first time we're standing in front of these nice council people and we're not in trouble.
Night's not over.
That's true.
I'm leaving now.
Tell us the good news.
Numbers are good.
Numbers for what?
I mean, take a look at those numbers.
We
Tell our-
we passed out a copy of our letter to the city council rather than mail it. We thought we would present it. We have, the Christmas parade turned out really well this year.
Tell our viewing audience at home what numbers we're talking about.
Okay.
What
This is
program?
The parade, this is the Toys for Tots campaign for El Dorado County. This is just the parade and our bell tower event on the 7th and 8th. We didn't include the total number of toys for the year because we're still collecting toys. Matter of fact, we've got a Suburban sitting out in the parking lot that's full. We've
And a
gotta go
pickup
to-
truck, too.
Well, the pickup, it's empty. We have a car to empty after we leave here tonight. We've still got to go to storage. We don't like to leave toys in the cars overnight for obvious reasons.
They get cold.
Yes. We did really well at the parade this year as opposed to last year.
Which we got 0 toys last year.
Because there was no parade.
We actually.
That's right.
Well, I don't remember the exact number of participants in the parade, but we pulled down 237 toys, which is more than the number of participants. So I think we had some folks that were giving us more than one toy.
Great.
Which is thank you.
And we also, the credit goes out to Toys on the Rocks. That's the Toyota four-wheel drive club.
Yeah, that's right.
They gave us 32 bicycles this year.
Oh.
And then if we get into the bell tower on the 7th, we got 67 toys donated. We purchased 305 toys with the funds that we received of $644, and we had 4 bicycles donated. We had $80 in checks donated, which are mailed back to the foundation, and then they put it on an ATM card, and then we go purchase more toys with that money. And then on the 8th of December, we received 47 toys, purchased 338 toys with a cash of $719.87. We had 2 bicycles donated and checks of $190, which were mailed to the foundation, for a total of 351 toys, including the parade and both days at the bell tower, 351 toys collected, $643 toys purchased, for a total of $1,363.87, which we spent in the local community businesses in the downtown Placerville area, just like we did last year. And with a total of $270 in checks that will be mailed to the foundation, and then we get to spend that as we move on. And there, I don't know if you wanted me to go down and read all the businesses that participated. Do you want me to take the time to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Alphabetically, we had the Candy Strike Emporium. We purchased some toys there. Central Coffee House, they gave us a discount on a coffee all day long. The Creekside Mall, I put cafe, but it's Creekside Mall. Cup of Coffee and More, who donated their services and coffee. El Dorado County Sheriff's Department donated, actually it was the El Dorado County Sheriff's Department came by and they came out and they helped us raise toys, and they stayed out on the street and talked to passerbys on the road. And the Sheriff's Explorers donated the 2 bicycles on December 8th
Frank's Body Shop, there's some pictures that are going to be published on their website, and we're going to do a presentation in January. We've got Rick over at Frank's Body Shop actually filled his pickup, and we got some pictures this afternoon. Heyday Cafe donated pizza both days. Kelsey's Needlecraft, we purchased toys there. Kiddlywinks Toy Store, we purchased toys. The Placerville Coffee Depot donated pastries and coffee on Saturday. Placerville Hardware, they donated some tarps because of the snow on Sunday, and then we purchased a few toys over there. Placerville Mayor's Office, the mayor came out on Saturday and spent
She
the day.
danced on the street with
That
the
was
snowman.
fun.
Oh, she was having a ball, right. And then
Sunday or Saturday?
I noticed.
Saturday.
I noticed I looked around when the snow started and I didn't see the mayor anymore.
Yeah, well,
Okay. And the chief of police was there on Saturday. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
And Placerville News. Placerville News has some really neat creative toys for children. The ones like kits and crafts, rather than just plain toys for children to play with. These are actually educational toys. In other words, I advise folks to go in there and see what they have in inventory. They have some really neat toys in there. The Bookery, they donated a bunch of books.
And hot cocoa.
And hot cocoa. She came down on.
Nancy did.
Nancy came down with 2 flats of hot cocoa for everyone. Just like, who is she? I didn't even know who she was. Whistle Stop Yogurt and the CHP, they made an appearance. And Thompson's Box Truck. Ronnie Thompson has got a really big heart in his community. He's done a really lot for Toys for Tots.
great.
Okay, it's my turn.
And who else?
It's my
Oh,
turn.
okay, it's your turn.
We couldn't do it without getting the bell tower. So when we lost toys and got 0 last year, and the guys sat soggy in Starbucks and said, we have to do something. And I said, the bell tower. And so that was when I did out the 100. And all you folks, many of you said back. So I'm wanting to schedule. In fact, I emailed Steve and I said, can I get the application? Because I got to book it now. Yes, see, it's right there. And I know Wendy and I talked and said we were going to do something more. We couldn't do it without Norm. With his music extraordinaire, we want to expand that piece. We did miss the stagecoach, but we know that there was icy conditions, although we spent 2 days out on the street.
Yeah, the horses don't like ice.
Cold. Talk about cold. But the people came out. We had Wolf that came into town. They publicized it. Mrs. Claus was down at the Kiddlywink store, and she was doing face paintings. The wife of one of the officers in Placerville, and she's going to be coming in here.
Officer George, no, actually Sergeant Jordan.
Brody Jordan.
He grew up.
Right.
So, but it was
his wife.
it was absolutely awesome. I mean, it was magic. It was fabulous. We shopped here in the community. I had shopaholics that were volunteered specifically on Sunday to shop. I had some high school students that never held that much money in their hands, and I told them to go buy toys with big eyes, and I said, I'll text you to check on you. And they came back, they had a ball. And it was a positive experience, and we're ready, planning for next year, and we want to go with this. I mean, it was great fun. And we really thank Steve and Cleve and everybody that helped make it possible, and Wendy. Gosh, it was great time hanging out with her and ringing bells.
Well, thank you for your passion for this community. What you provide an amazing gift to ensure that the children of our community have some magic in their Christmas season. And just thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And I love that you highlighted our local business, because that's what community is all about. And thank you for supporting that too. So.
It is, and we still look at volunteers. If you still want to donate toys, come see us. And if there's families still out there in need, please register, because we're doing the toy giveaway this coming weekend.
Okay. Yes, Patty?
I just had a real quick question. You kind of just hit on it, but how do you decide where the toys go? Oh.
Okay, you want to hit that?
We actually do the registration through the Office of Education here in the county, and we register any kids that are in need. We don't ask questions. We do make sure that the 2 things that are very endearing to us, that we do take care of our county kids. Last year, we took care of close to 4,000 kids, and I should mention, too, that we are now up in South Lake Tahoe working with the family services up there. They just contacted me. We've got several hundred kids that are in need up there. So our toys and our community outreach is very, very important. Also, we do work with charities. I just signed up CASA this morning with Kathy, and they're going to be receiving toys from us. We've got 12 pallets of books coming from Leapfrog that are going to go out throughout the county. We've got Leapfrog is one of those great education communities. I shop here locally. I'm very, very focused because I grew up in a little farming community that I had little Amish buggies, and my cows were my best friends. And so little towns and growing up in it's important, and I want to keep my shops open. And I want to keep, connected with the people here in the community as well. So we do a pretty good job. It's just that we want to make sure that any kid out there is in need. We never turn children away. And Holly and I were even shopping up to Christmas Day for Toys for Tots, believe it or not, because merchants know us. And one of them last year caught us, and we thought we were going to shop for us. And we ended up shopping for one of their employees because the woman came out, the owner, and she said they're not doing really well. They had a setback. And so we got the information and we shopped for 3 more kids.
Wow.
And we went home tired, and we woke up on Christmas and we thought, let's go for a walk. And so
Well, thank you.
that was pretty much.
Thank you so much. What a blessing you are to all of
Thank
us,
you.
and we look forward to hearing the fruitage of your labor in January. So.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll be back in January. I guess we're going to come at the second meeting in January. I'll give you a short after-action report with some good photographs and slideshow.
Okay, say goodbye, Holly.
Bye, Holly.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak this evening? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Kirk Smith from Placerville. I just had some questions about the turnabout, because that night when it was considered last, we had a lot of comments, and I know a couple of council members talked about feeling insulted, et cetera, but you didn't, I made the comment that, if we had a referendum, we could find out what the people really thought, and we'd be able to look at what interests were involved, like development and Marshall Hospital. But at the last session, I really learned about the impact of Marshall Hospital and its impact for the turnabout or the intersection of Cedar Ravine and Main Street. Because as I drove to test it out, the distance between that intersection and property leased by Marshall was 32 seconds in one direction, and then up to the other, to the main campus, it's 90 seconds. So what my question is that you recused yourself when it came to not acting on their parking issues, but not on the turnabout. But if you look at the math, the biggest consumer of traffic services, as I learned, for the turnabout, that intersection, call it realignment, turnabout, same animal, is Marshall Hospital. 850, I was shocked, parking places allotted, and that's not where people go to work in the morning and get off in the afternoon. There's 3 shifts around the clock. And then your tenants for coming in to visit, they're coming and going all day long. So that's several thousand, arguably, drivers going through that section. So the question is about your code of conduct. I know is kind of fuzzy and it's arguably flexible, but recuse yourself when you're on the board, but not from the roundabout. And then when I checked, our city attorney, very good, able counsel, is the vice chair of the same body. So, and then I watched as Ms. Wilkins was asked to recuse herself, or suggestion made she recuse herself, because she lives, a couple hundred or a few hundred feet away. As you can see, I need to walk, lots of us need to walk. We don't walk, we drive. So the distance, for all of us, we go by Cedar Ravine all the time, driving. And I don't know how it would be an impact on her, monetarily one way or another. I don't know how there's a conflict for her, but wouldn't be for yourself when you're on the board. Does that make sense? Do you see the,
Sure,
the issue? And likewise, when you're talking about distance, because you've been very good about recusal, I've noticed in the last couple of years, but regarding property we have, it was a sign issue, and that's not a matter of 400 feet, as was the case when you recused yourself because your husband has property next to one sign issue at the Hangman's Tree. But Mr. Hagan has property that adjoins, its buttresses it, and then made the directive to the person giving the report to look at the other properties. Well, the other properties were less than a half a dozen. More than one was owned by the same person. So that's not the way I thought that you had in your structure. It's a managerial system, so the directives go from this body to the city manager and then to the staff, not from the mayor, vice mayor, or council member, because that's the issue that kind of got people in trouble not that long ago on the body. So it just seems, I know at the time, a number of us raised ethics issues and thought this was a wonderful time when you disposed of the last matter to look at it, and we were cut off. But this probably helps to explain why it's maybe a good time to look at them and come up with some consistency. I'm not accusing anybody of being consistent, but it would be nice to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You see why it might look a little different?
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Smith, and we'll take that under advisement. Any other comments? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council, Kathy Lishman. And I just thought driving here tonight, there's an issue that I wanted to bring up or write a letter, and I never get around to it. I live on the north side of town. I come across at Bedford into town often. And often you're sitting there, and there's no cars going east, and the light is green for them. No cars going east. And then all of a sudden you see the cars coming, and about when they get up to the light, it turns red. So it seems to me that the signals are not timed as well as they should be. Also, if you come in at night into Placerville, and then at that point I turn on Spring Street, and you're sitting there to make a left turn, and the light's never, there's nobody around, and the light doesn't change green for you for a long time. So I know it's a Caltrans issue, but I didn't know if there's a way of looking at how they're timed, and also the traffic coming down the hill, not on Sundays, but just regularly. Often the light it's going west, and often the light at Canal Street doesn't turn, and the traffic backs up through a lot of intersections, or it's the light at Spring that doesn't change, and the traffic backs up through Bedford. So I thought when we did the Highway 50 improvements, we would get an intelligent light system. I thought that that would solve a lot of our problems, and I think Caltrans needs to do something to make it better because it's a lot smarter than it's acting. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate your comments. Look into that. Anyone else? All right. Oh, yes. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. My name is William Bach. I wanted to address a couple of things with the building department. I think there's some chaos going on in there with a couple of people leaving. Just wanted to see if there was any direction in that office about plans being sent out of the city for approvals, costing the city more money. I haven't got into it that much, but I have ran into the problem already myself, and I have several friends that are architects and structural engineers that are running into the same problem. Downtimes, plans being sent out of town to be, evaluated and looked at. So just to bring that up to the council. Another thing about this improvements or whatever they're doing up on Upper Broadway with the trying to get rid of the homeless, I understand that, cleaning up their mess up there, but it's also affecting a couple of businesses up there severely when you guys shut down the road.
Oh.
And it's shut down today. I've lived here for 57 years. I have never seen them shut Upper Broadway down because of ice. I see no sand trucks either for the city or for the county, which is irritating for a lot of people. So I just kind of, bring that up to the council too to take a look at that.
Right.
And I think for right now that'll be it, but I'll be back.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Bach.
very much.
Appreciate your comments very much. With that, I'll close public comment and would like to get a couple clarity on a couple issues if possible. Mr. Voss, do you want to speak to perhaps the building department and you can offer to meet with them or?
Sure, I'd be
Is there any
happy to
issues?
meet with the speaker, and just so you understand, the building division is very short-staffed. I mean, essentially, it's made up of the building official. We have a retired annuitant. He's a person that comes back and helps us do plans, inspections, and those kinds of things. But the city contracts with Interwest, and they provide a resource for us where we can send the plans out so they can expedite the review. But that's typically how we do it currently, because
Excuse
But
me,
I mean,
Mr. Bach.
sir-
I'm so sorry. Public comment
No,
is closed at this point. We can't have a back and forth conversation because it's not an agendized item. But I did want to introduce you to the building department head, Mr. Rivas, and you can certainly go and get your questions answered. We are in a period of transition there, but I just wanted to alert you to Mr. Rivas and. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I work in City Hall on the second floor. You're more than welcome to come in there, and we can make an appointment, or I'm happy to meet with you.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I just think it's important that when we get questions that, we're accessible and we hear you and certainly want to work with you to address any of your challenges. And I'd also like to clear up misconceptions. City Attorney Driscoll, do you want to speak to, at this point, clarifying perhaps and the issue on recusing over the intersection as part of a board member or versus city council?
In terms of recusal with respect to, let's start with yourself, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
As a board member of the hospital, you do not have a financial interest in that hospital per se. It's not the type of recusal that is a result of a financial interest. It would be a recusal that would be, or an abstention really, which would be as a result of an appearance of bias. In other words, because of your position on the board of the hospital, you might favor some action for them. But it's certainly not a financial interest that the FPPC would look at. It's what is commonly known to be redundant as common law conflict.
Okay.
With respect to Councilmember Wilkins, it was a planning matter, and I believe her residence was into 300 feet of the particular project, and under the guidelines that are put out by the FPPC, that you are to recuse yourself when you are within that distance, that proximity of a particular project. With respect to myself, I, like you, are on the board. Mm-hmm. We're not paid by Marshall Hospital. We're volunteers. We have no financial interest. I would have the same issue that you would if I were providing the city advice with respect to that I might try and favor Marshall Hospital, even though I am not their lawyer and do not want to be their lawyer. However, I can say that in this matter, I did not advise the city with respect to the application. Had an issue come up with respect to the application that needed the advice of council, we would have got outside counsel, and we do have backup counsel that we can get in those situations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that because I know we are always very, very careful to err on the side of caution.
Yeah, and also in the area of the sign ordinance, we were dealing with all of the signs in the community and not just Mr. Smith's property.
Okay.
Is my understanding on that. So, and the same with the roundabout. It has to do with the good for the city.
That's the one comment he made that I forgot to address. It had to do with the roundabout, which affects the majority of people in addition to Marshall Hospital. The effect of it is so large that the conflict issues don't arise in that situation.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. I always like to clear up misconceptions. All right. I forgot to do any written communication. Is there any written communication? All right. With that, we're on item 8, consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. Does any member of the council wish to do so? No. Does any member of the public wish to comment on any item on the consent calendar? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action.
I'd like to add, I'll move that we do it. I would like to note the council to note that item, the minutes, I misspoke when I said I was attended during my item 12 report on council reports. I indicated that I had reviewed it came out Transit Authority audit review, and I actually had just been in prior to that with the same auditors for the Transportation Commission, which oversees part of the Transit Committee. But so it came out on the report that it was the Transit Authority, and it should read Transportation Agency. So with that correction to the minutes, I will move the consent calendar.
And I'll second it.
Okay. It's been moved by Vice Mayor Hagan, and I heard Councilmember Wilkins second first, so moved and second. All those in favor? Oh, roll call vote, please. Mr. Morris, are you doing the roll call?
Yes, I am.
You're up.
My notes here. Councilmember Borelli,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hagan,
Aye.
Councilmember Patton,
Aye.
Mayor Thomas,
Aye.
and Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye. Thank you very much. Motion passes. At this, we're on item 9, ordinances, item 9.1, and because it has to do with Marshall Campus, I will be recusing myself, as will Councilmember Wilkins. So I will turn this over to Vice Mayor Hagan.
Okay, item 9.1 is a second reading of an ordinance amending the City of Placerville zoning map from R1 6,000 single-family residential to R1 6 zone to BP, business professional zone for the Marshall Medical Center campus and the environs. Mr. Rivas.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hagan, members of the council. Staff really doesn't have much to add. I just would point out that this item was considered by the City Council at your November 26th meeting. And as you stated, this is a second reading now of the ordinance, and staff is recommending that you waive the second reading of the ordinance amending the City of Placerville zoning map from R16 single-family residential zone to business professional zone for the Marshall Medical Center campus and environs, and adopt said ordinance.
Okay. Any questions of staff by either council member? None. Seeing none from the staff, any from the audience, any questions or comments regarding the Marshall second reading of this ordinance? Please state your name for the...
My name is Russell Anders, and I'd like to first say I guess I missed the memo on the red sweaters. I didn't get that. For some reason, it just didn't come through. I'm not sure I understand what they mean by waiving of the, what Mr. Rivas said about waiving of the second reading of this. I'm not sure I quite understand that.
Okay. Is that your only question?
No.
Okay. Go ahead with your question.
In addition,
and we'll
I'm
answer-
opposed to the change from R1 to business and professional. That has been going on by Marshall Hospital now for close to 15 years. There was an article in the newspaper today saying that they're going to have a roughly 50, this new change from residential to business and professional will add 51 parking places, when in essence Marshall Hospital needs at a minimum another 300 to 400 parking places, particularly when Mr. Whipple said that they're going to have 500 new employees in the near future. I brought a map up that I had made today showing Marshall Hospital and its environs. Highlighted on the map is a parcel that I own directly across the street from Marshall Hospital that Marshall Hospital had been leasing from me from 2005 till 2012, yes. My recommendation to Marshall Hospital, to members of the staff of Marshall Hospital, was that they use my parcel and the parcel that they own or use on the corner of Marshall Way and Corker, combine those two parcels and construct a parking garage, a parking structure that will satisfy the needs for Marshall Hospital for many years to come. This piecemeal approach of putting a Band-Aid on a terrible issue of parking up there in that area has gotten past the point where it is acceptable. Those of us who had buildings up there and have commercial properties up there and have businesses up there, we have no parking for our patients or our staff or those wishing to come to visit because Marshall Hospital employees pretty much take over everything that is up there. On my parcel, Marshall Hospital used just as a parking lot and had stickers on the employees' parking cars designating that they could stay in that parking lot. And that parking lot was full pretty much 24 hours a day. Even though the building itself was occupied by Marshall Hospital, the employees that worked in that office could not park in that building. So what I'm suggesting is that there be a global solution to a problem that's going to continue for the next God knows how long. Whether Marshall stays at as Marshall Hospital or someone else takes over Marshall Hospital, the parking situation is atrocious in that area. And I would strongly suggest that the city council put their foot down finally and tell Marshall, look, you need to get a parking structure that's going to take care of your needs now and in the future. And since there are available parcels, they should do everything they can to avail themselves of these parking areas.
Thank you.
Any questions?
We'll respond to your comments unless council has questions. Anybody?
Do you have any questions?
No. We'll respond to you off mic.
I have
Okay.
a response, but not right now.
Okay. And I'll remember about the red sweater next year.
Kirk Smith, Placerville. I came back because I do think that it was very informative last time when this subject came up because we really learned a lot. And I agree with the last speaker. There needs to be a concerted effort to have them do garage parking. And the chief executive officer said that it was just very expensive. That's something that it's in the public interest to look at because 850 places is huge. You know, it's almost like Walmart of that community. And again, I support you folks for all your public service and all kinds of endeavors. And Marshall's a great institution, provides good services. But it's that old thing like, you know, what's good for Marshall is good for the city. It's like saying what's good for General Motors is good for America. It didn't work for Hoover. So I just think it you know, it's easy when you provide that kind of public service to get that perspective where you want to keep letting them slide each time. And that's been sliding for quite a while to now get in a spot where they're talking about more spaces and they just don't have the horizontal room for it. It needs to have vertical parking and there needs to be some, you let them slide. And John, I think you're a great American, you're a great lawyer, but the rules for this body is to avoid the appearance of impropriety. That's what your code says. It has no teeth in it. But the thing
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Beg your pardon?
I said thank you. Your comments, we've answered those comments on us, and I'd appreciate if you would direct your comments regarding parking and this issue, not go back to your accusations.
I appreciate your point.
Thank
and
you.
that's all the very good reason why it needs to come to a break.
You were here last meeting, you heard the same argument, so.
Beg your pardon?
I think you were here last meeting and made those same comments, or you heard all the answers to most of those questions.
And I heard,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the public? Okay, at this time, I'll bring back to the council, and I'd like to, first of all, ask or answer Mr. Andrews' questions. Mr. Rivas, could you maybe enlighten him as to the action we took at the last meeting and why this is the second reading of the ordinance?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor Hagan. This item is being considered by the council as a second reading of the zoning ordinance. It's an ordinance change, it's a legislative act which requires this process. And so the council had already made a decision regarding the parking on November the 26th. And at that hearing, the council considered both a traffic study and a parking study that was prepared by Marshall Hospital and submitted to staff and was analyzed and reviewed and then presented to the council. There were two very important directives that the council made to staff, and I'll go ahead and I'll read them because I think they're really important. And this was number 8, and it's in the minutes of November 26th for this item. Staff shall initiate code enforcement on illegal parking lot L6 and NC1 used by Marshall Medical Center. And then 2, number 9, this is the most important one, direct staff to work with Marshall Medical Center staff, representatives of the community care facilities, and other business professional offices located near the medical center, and the public to seek long-term solutions to parking-related issues. And so that is the council direction to staff. We're going to do that. and I'll be happy to meet with Mr. Anders, and we're going to look at a long-term solution and hopefully partner with Marshall and come to a long-term solution regarding parking. Because I think it was clear from some of the comments I heard from the council members that they were concerned about the continual piecemeal consumption of other land uses, housing, and the like for surface parking, and so we're gonna follow through with that.
Okay, thank you.
But it's not late.
Was there any additional questions or comments?
No, I'm glad to hear Mr. Rivas say that, because that was really an issue. And I just want it stated again that and Carol mentioned, we don't want to let this go on. And I said, let's start next week. And I was serious.
And that is, there's nothing in here that has a timeline
We
associated
don't
to
have
it.
a timeline, but I really would like to get started on it as soon as possible. So,
But I guess my concern was that it wasn't in the ordinance that was written for this staff report. Is that really necessary?
Because that's just a zoning
Since
change.
it's in the minutes, it's okay. Oh,
This is a zoning change. Last week, it was the approval of the parking thing, the parking
Okay. That's,
Right.
place.
okay.
Yes,
Vice Mayor, I just wanted to clarify, the gentleman asked what, he didn't understand the waiving of the second reading, what that was. State law requires us to read the actual text of an ordinance, a first reading at the first meeting and the second reading at the second meeting, unless the council elects to waive that reading. So this was to waive them reading the actual text of the ordinance. So that's what that means.
thank you. Okay, I hope we answered your questions. Okay, one additional question?
So the question is that because this is a zone change, that we don't have to have those two conditions listed in that particular ordinance or zone change?
The two parking lots that are
The
unpermitted.
unpermitted parking lots.
I don't see it in here.
That was in direction to staff.
Yeah, there was direction because when staff reviewed the parking study that was prepared by Marshall
Right.
and their agents, we found that two of the parking lots that are currently being used are unpermitted
Correct.
and undeveloped, and so the direction from the council was that we would initiate code enforcement on those illegal parking lots. And just so the council's aware, we're not going to single out just those two parking lots. I think there's several other illegal parking lots that are in the city that we will take enforcement action against all of them all at once.
Well, I just remember when I made the motion that was also included in, I thought, my motion that we close those two, or that,
Not we closed that we.
not close them, but that they would be eventually, when this was completed, then those would close. I mean,
Well,
they
Would be
wouldn't.
brought into compliance.
They would
Bring
be
into compliance.
either brought into compliance or,
And that could be done by a number of, my understanding could also be done by special use permit or a number of other actions, including doing improvements required of those existing lots, so that, again, we don't wipe out, we approve 50 and wipe out another 70, that's going to defeat the purpose, in my opinion, of this until at least we get that parking study completed and we really do look at vertical storage from vehicles. I mean, that's obviously where we're going to have to go down the road. So,
But I wanted to reiterate that too, that is the ultimate goal, is to go to a less of a footprint. And the idea of just bringing into compliance additional parking lots is not where I was going with it.
no.
I want to be clear there that just because these are non-compliant today doesn't mean that in 2 months they'll come back and say, well, we want to stripe it and light it. And I'm going to say, no, it's not a right now that's what I would say is no. It's not a long-term solution to this problem. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a long-term solution, not another horizontal parking lot.
good. And I think that's the point that staff got and
And
the promise we made to the public.
Right,
Right.
and the concern that Patty and I both had was that it wasn't in this ordinance tonight. It's in the minutes, but it's not in this ordinance tonight, and I don't want it lost in the shuffle. So however that gets.
Just so you know, after each council meeting, I put together what I call my action items from your agenda. And I have a report that goes to each of my department heads with responsibilities for each action that was taken at a council meeting. And they have to report back on how they've achieved that. And so we will be following up on that. The ordinance, my understanding, believe we discussed this at the last meeting, that these items were not something that necessarily would be in the ordinance, but they were additions to the motion that we were making. And so that's why they're not noted tonight. All we're doing tonight is having the second reading and adopting the ordinance. But that doesn't diminish the importance of those items. We heard you loud and clear, and we will be moving forward with those and taking action on those.
So what's the difference between a condition of approval? Because at the planning commission level, you look at a recommendation, and then you also institute conditions of approval. Maybe staff has their own conditions. I kind of felt like that's what we were doing. In order to approve this, we were saying, we want you to initiate enforcement, and we want you to look at a long-term solution. But it's not, it sounds like it's not the same technique.
Yeah, staff didn't look at these two action items, and that would be action items 8 and 9 that I read. We wouldn't look at these as conditions of approval for the conditional use permit and the site plan review for the new surface parking lot that you approved. But basically direction to staff based on the information that was provided to you. So staff will follow up on these items.
Okay.
And
Well,
I think we did add some conditions to it, the same as the city planning commission did, correct? We added item 50, I believe it was, and we added that item.
I think that was the intent. It was.
I forget what, but anyway, we did add some items, a couple of items that came when it came to city council, but we added 1 or 2 items to it, I believe, so.
Right, you
Well,
may
the one that
have,
I-
and
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't have a list of the actual conditions of approval
Right.
for the actual permit
Right.
in front of me, but
The one
these
that
were
I know
action
that-
pour staff to follow up on
Yeah.
regarding those 2 parking lots.
That was part of, I thought that was part of my motion.
We did, we added that.
Okay,
We added
I
the
just,
items,
but
so,
I didn't,
yeah.
okay.
We'll go back and double check that for
Okay.
sure if Mr. Voss or Mr.
Okay.
In fact, the city manager will get back to you two. I'll be out of town, and confirm that that item was added. It was added to the list of the planning condition recommendations.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
okay, let those do. Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, then, we'd call for the question. I'm sorry, we need to have a motion. That's correct. But you can ask questions afterwards, and I'd be glad to talk to you after the meeting. So. I'm sorry, we've already approved the permit. We're just doing the zoning at this time. That's the only thing we've done. Well, okay, and I'm, okay.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we waive the second reading of the ordinance, or no, that we, waive the second reading of the ordinance amending the city zoning map from R1 6000 to BP for Marshall Medical Center and adopt the said ordinance.
Okay, it's been a motion.
I'll second it.
So moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Would read, Mr. City Manager, that it passed unanimous. Okay, Steve, would you get the other 2 council members, please? Thank you. At this time, when the mayor gets back, she'll take over on item 9.2.
All right. All right, with that, we are on item 9.2. First reading of an ordinance adding Chapter 19 of the Placerville Municipal Code relating to camping on public or private property. That is your item, Chief Heller.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, you have
Can you
to
hear
get
me?
pretty close to
Okay.
that. Sorry about that.
Placerville has seen a proliferation of temporary and makeshift camps being set up on both public and private property throughout the city. These camps present public safety and health concerns which adversely impact neighborhoods and commercial areas. These spontaneous camps are set up in areas not designated or zoned as campgrounds. These camps are frequently exposed to extreme weather conditions. They have no restroom facilities or garbage pickup, which creates a major public health concern due to the lack of any sanitation services. Likewise, campers will often cook and heat by open flame in areas where fire could catch and spread rapidly, endangering public and private structures. These camps often attract various pests, increasing the likelihood of sickness and disease. It has been the experience of law enforcement that narcotic use and paraphernalia are often present within these camps. Camps are often occupied by those with dependency issues involving drugs and alcohol. Similarly, camps are often occupied by subjects wanted for outstanding warrants, sex registration offenses, and absconding from parole or have failed to comply with the terms of their probation and/or parole. As a result of this criminal element, the camps can be dangerous for those living in them because they can become victims of crime by others from either within or outside of the camps. Occupants of illegal camps often do not report crimes to the police for fear of retaliation. At present, the city code does not provide the police department with a comprehensive set of tools to address unregulated camping within city limits, other than Code Section 8.8.2, which primarily addresses constructing or building any permanent or temporary structure on public property. The proposed ordinance will provide the police department with an effective and comprehensive tool with which to address the problems described above, or I described prior, which are created by unregulated camping within the city limits on both public and private property. This new ordinance allows the city manager to issue a temporary permit to establish, maintain, and operate a camp or camp facility in connection with a special event. A special event is intended to include programs operated by the city, youth or school events, marathons, or other sporting events and scouting activities. The ordinance also addresses illegal camp articles and property left idle on public and private properties. Under the ordinance, any person who stores personal property, including camp paraphernalia, on any public property or any private property without the consent of the owner is guilty of a misdemeanor and constitutes a public nuisance. The purpose of adding Chapter 19 to Title VI of the City Code is to maintain streets, parks, and other public and private areas within the city in a clean, sanitary, and accessible condition, and to adequately protect the health, safety, and public welfare of the community while mitigating the serious fire dangers presented by illegal camps. Finally, the primary strategy when dealing with homeless persons is to attempt to contact them with outreach services and in turn temporary shelters through voluntary compliance. Therefore, the enforcement posture of the police department when contacting homeless individuals in illegal camps will be to attempt to connect the inhabitants with outreach services and available shelter. When encountering the habitual homeless that are plagued with serious mental health and dependency issues, this camping ordinance will serve as a last resort tool to force compliance and connect the habitual homeless by mandating assistance under the jurisdiction of the courts. Again, the aim is not to criminalize homelessness. Rather, law enforcement aims to collaborate with community and mental health services to seek long-term solutions to the habitual homeless challenge. Staff recommends, well, this is the introduction, recommends waiving the first reading, introducing the ordinance.
All right. Thank you, Chief Heller. At this time, is there any questions for staff? Vice Mayor Hagan?
None.
Councilmember Wilkins? No? Councilmember Patton?
I have one question, has to do with, like when they have mobile homes camped out at the fairgrounds for various events. So don't you think there should be language in there that says, or other entities as approved by cities, by the city manager's office or city staff? I mean, rather than just limit it to programs operated by the city, youth or school events, marathons or other sporting or scouting event activities. And there's, sometimes there, I mean, I know we've used the fairgrounds for camping events.
You want to, I would just say real quick, and I'll give it to you.
Yeah,
City Manager.
one point I was going to make is that we have no jurisdiction over the fairgrounds. The county would have the jurisdiction to approve whether or not they allowed something there. So we couldn't enforce this ordinance on the county property, which is the fairgrounds property.
What about where, our, like, the Missouri, our mosquito park and ride, and we've had sometimes people parking in there and not, that kind of situation, or
Right.
trucks or.
We can't enforce it there.
So this would, this would be a part of that.
Yeah. And I think we have that covered in here.
Any other questions, Councilmember Borelli? No? All right. At this point, is there any member of the public that would wish to speak to this item? Please come forward. State your name for the record, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Teague Wasserman. A little bit too short for this. Chief Heller, I have a question. When you say that you want to direct the homeless to any homeless shelters, which homeless shelter are you referring to, seeing as the city of Placerville has just closed down the only homeless shelter?
Actually,
that
just
we have?
address your questions to the council, and then we'll get your questions answered.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. No problem. Okay, so your questions are, which shelters is he referring to?
Right, seeing as Hangtown Haven was just recently closed.
Okay, all right. Any other questions on that?
Regarding Hangtown Haven, yeah, a lot. But I think that that's a little bit off topic.
Exactly, yeah, okay, great. All right, Chief Heller, would you like to address that?
Yeah, actually, it wouldn't be a change in what the department has already been doing the last several weeks with the very severe cold. We've been proactively going out and trying to contact homeless individuals where we know them to gather and camp and try to direct them towards the day shelter over behind Placerville Drive, and also direct them to the nomadic shelters in the evening. So those temporary housing shelters exist, and that's where we would direct them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I'd also like to clarify that as Chief Heller mentioned in his report, we are also vigorously working on other solutions right now and fully collaborating with the county and the churches and the nonprofits to move a proper solution forward. So we are in the works on that, absolutely. So is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this item? No? With that, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the council for action. Any further discussion? This ordinance?
I'd like to introduce the ordinance adding Chapter 19 to Title 6 of the Placerville City Code relating to camping on public or private property and waive the first reading.
Been moved by Councilmember Borelli and seconded by Councilmember Wilkins. All those in favor? Say aye. Oh, did you? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Councilmember Patton. Any further discussion?
I was wondering if you would be willing to put some wording in there that says, or any other entity as approved by the city, so that if it was something other than a scouting or sporting event, it could still come, there still is a potential for somebody else to come in.
Do we have an amendment to the motion? So, I'm sorry.
I mean, I don't see that,
If they
I
find
see
it
it's just
necessary.
limited to
Well-
city youth, school events, marathons, sporting events, and scouting. And if we wanted to have, I mean, let's
We need
just
to look at the
say there's a
ordinance.
music event that wants to come to Goldbug Park. I mean, I'm just saying that I don't want to
We
just
wanna look at all
limit
the,
it. I would
Yeah,
like it to have.
options.
Can you give me just 1 minute? Let me.
Absolutely.
Because that's in the staff report. I want to make sure the language in the ordinance,
Isn't-
is it more?
Yeah, if I
Those are examples,
if I could.
believe,
Yes,
right,
Chief Heller.
In the ordinance, 6.19.5, actually, I can read it real quick. Permit for special events required.
Oh, it says, but not limited to. Okay.
Yes, it
Okay.
does. So a permit can be issued for any activity, camping activity.
And a method for the approval.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So city manager has a pretty broad discretion on this for special events.
Okay, thank you.
Does that satisfy you,
Thank you,
Councilmember
Mayor.
Patton? All right.
And then I'll make one more comment before we vote. Ms. T. Wasserman, the Hangtown Haven was not a shelter. It was a camp that we allowed to set up. So it wasn't technically a shelter, and I think it's important to understand the differential between those, so.
Okay, the public comment is closed, but I'd love to talk to you afterwards about that, too. So we have a motion on the table, and so all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, and with that, we're on item 9.3, and Chief Heller, it's yours again.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This will be the introduction of an ordinance relating to aggressive solicitation. This will be another tool in the toolbox for the department as we continue the restorative policing effort, which is to connect habitual homeless with outreach services. And sometimes, like I said on the prior ordinance, it requires an enforcement tool to push the individual sometimes towards those resources. The Placerville Police Department began tracking contacts with habitual transit offenders based on observed and reported crime since July of 2012. From July 2012 through June 2013, there were 724 contacts, averaging 60 per month. From July through October this year, there's been 458, averaging 115 per month. That's a 92% increase year over year. Habitual transient offenders are those individuals with a status of being voluntary homeless and choosing to constantly commit nuisance violations such as aggressively panhandling, trespassing, illegally camping, engaging in arson, urinating, defecating in public, using and abusing alcohol and narcotics in public, and creating a chronic public nuisance for the community. The police department has several tools in its toolbox to contend with habitual transient offenders, including current laws addressing trespassing, arson, indecent exposure, public intoxication, etc. However, at present, the city code does not provide the police department with an ordinance specific to aggressive solicitation. The only existing ordinance addressing solicitation currently is Title V, Chapter 4, which primarily addresses licensing solicitors and peddlers engaged in lawful business practices. The proposed aggressive solicitation ordinance will provide the police department with an effective and comprehensive tool with which to address aggressive panhandling and the problems often associated with the behavior. The ordinance is tailored after a similar ordinance in place in Auburn, California. The purpose of adding Chapter 20 to Title VI of the City Code is to protect citizens from feeling intimidated, fearful of bodily harm, or damage to property. Likewise, enforcement of the code would aim to reduce blight and increase the quality of life for citizens and businesses in the community. Staff's recommendation would be to introduce the ordinance and waive the first reading.
All right. Thank you, Chief Heller. At this time, questions for staff? Vice Mayor Hagan? None. Councilmember Wilkins? Councilmember Borelli?
No.
Councilmember Patton? Okay, I do have two quick questions before we open public comment. Let's see. On aggressive solicitation, I saw, what that means and how that's defined. What about a constant presence at a locality? Is that considered, is that aggressive in a sense? Would that fall into this category? Or is it a threatening presence?
Well, there's two main components to the ordinance. There's the aggressive component, which covers persistently approaching a person or using profanity or obviously a threat of violence or whatnot. Right. Just merely standing somewhere would not necessarily be aggressive solicitation. That would have to fall under a second part of the code, which would be location specific, which includes automatic teller machines, banks, gas stations, proximity to moving vehicles, and those are spelled out in and I'll refer to Mr. Driscoll for any further on that.
Okay, yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Well, the chief's comments are accurate, very accurate. Just standing in a location that's not one of the identified locations like banks, ATMs, et cetera, on a continual basis without any of the aggressive character behavior is not prohibited by this, and under the Constitution is not prohibited. So it's something, it's an allowable activity, and that's why in crafting this, the chief was very careful in making sure that it was within the boundaries of constitutional guidelines.
Great. I thought that was an important distinction to make, so thank you very, very much for clarifying that. I'm
just a little bit curious, though. I have a public building, and I think it's it detours from business coming into your building. I mean, if I had somebody standing out on my sidewalk 8 hours a day in front of my building, that would be upsetting to me. So is there some provision that I, as a property owner, can go have that person removed, or?
I would defer you to private counsel on that one, because the city cannot enforce that for you.
But a public?
I would suggest you talk to a private attorney as to what your rights are with respect to your properties there. I wouldn't want to give you that advice. Sorry.
It's a touchy issue. Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much.
You have to be very careful, and that's why I'm saying that.
Yeah, that's true. I also wanted to make one other comment before we open public comment. I think under the first paragraph on discussion, the word "and" is really important, where you say habitual transient offenders are defined as those individuals with a status of being voluntary homeless and choosing to constantly commit nuisance violations such as, and it goes on. I think it's important to make that distinction, that I like that you brought out clearly that we are not attempting to criminalize homelessness by any means, any stretch of the imagination, that choosing homelessness and choosing these aggressive behaviors is what we're addressing in this ordinance, and I want to be real clear about that. So I thank you for the word "and" there and not "or," because both need to occur. And I just think that's really important, that there is a big distinction between homeless and people in transition and habitual transient offenders. They're not the same, and it's the habitual transient offenders that we are talking about and giving you tools to deal with in our community. So as we push toward larger solutions. So thank you for that. And with that, I'd like to open public comment on this issue. Anyone wish to speak on this? All right, if not, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the council. Is there any further discussion?
I have a comment.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to acknowledge that this is a tool for solving this problem and thank our new chief for working on this.
Yeah.
And I'll move to introduce the ordinance, adding Chapter 20 to Title 6 of the Placerville City Code relating to aggressive solicitation and waive first reading.
It's been moved by Councilmember Wilkins and seconded by Councilmember Borelli. Is there any further discussion? No. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Opposed? No opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, and with that, number 10, public hearings, none scheduled. Item 11, discussion action items. This is a comprehensive, exciting document. Adopt the City of Placerville Economic Development Strategy. Mr. Morris. Oh, okay. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
We'll take a 5-minute break on this issue. No, that's okay. Yeah. All right, we're going to come back from recess. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. All right, well, thank you, everyone, for your patience on that. We are on item 11.1, adopt the City of Placerville Economic Development Strategy that our peak group has been working incredibly hard on. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to let you know I've put together a PowerPoint presentation to go through these. I'm going to go through them rather quickly, but because you all have those in your agenda, please stop me at any time when you have questions. Let me know along the way, or if you want me to go slower, or if you want me to go faster, let me know. I can do both. So with that, the Placerville Economic Development or Economic Advisory Committee completed the plan at their last meeting and made the recommendation to bring it forward to the council. Go ahead, Dave, you can move that to the vision and the mission, which is the next slide. You've already seen, as you recall, we brought back to you the mission, vision, goals, and objectives previously for your approval. And now what we've been working on since last summer is the strategies to accomplish each of the goals and objectives that we came up with. So that's mainly what we're looking at tonight. However, I want to emphasize if there are things in the goals and objectives that you think should be changed, added, eliminated, etc., now is the time to do that. I also want to mention that I see this very much as a working document as we move forward, accomplish things, see that certain things do or don't work. We want to be able to adopt this or change this, and we'll bring that back to you when that happens. That's one of the reasons, as I talked about it, that I didn't elect to adopt this with a resolution, because I see the potential, especially on things like the timelines that you'll see in there, there will probably be need for frequent changes in that, at least on an annual basis. So we're not proposing to adopt it by resolution, but to have just by minute action for the council to adopt that. So this is the vision, the mission statement. I won't read through those. You all have those in your packet, in your agenda, but there's there. So let's go on to goal number 1. Goal number 1 is to promote primary job growth and prepare for the future, with the objective being to support primary job-based businesses through retention, expansion, and recruitment programs, through working with partners, local businesses, and entrepreneurs. Okay. The strategies, number 1, implement business outreach visit program to assess business needs. And as you know, Mayor Thomas and Council Member Hagan has participated in, we've done 2 of them as all so far. We're trying to get those scheduled on a more regular basis. They've been very successful, and we want to use the information that we get from those to see how we can improve the business climate. So those have already started. Timing, it says begin August 2013, but this is an ongoing thing. We have started those. We need to get more regular with them, and we're working on that. Number 2, establish a members-only blog, website, social media site to connect and facilitate communication between business owners, provide opportunities for businesses to communicate regarding events and opportunities. The different business associations already have this to a certain extent. They communicate fairly well, especially I know PDA does, and I think Broadway does, Placerville Drive also. But this would maybe expand that, and we need to do some work on this one in terms of meeting with those groups to see the need or the usefulness of this, I think, before we actually move into it. But we put it in here as a strategy at this time.
Members only, they would
Correct.
sign up for it.
Yeah, yes. Number 3, identify current priority employers and future industries and their needs. And this is proposed to be done by April, to identify a list, and that's something that Peak will, one of the strategies they'll begin working on immediately, is to look at what are those major industries that we want to focus on and perhaps expand on in the future, and how can we meet their needs. So, number 4, identify inventory of vacant and or underutilized commercial buildings and property, and prepare websites/brochures for marketing to future users. Now, when I say websites, prepare information on our website that we can promote to future users of those sites. That's a big one. It's going to take a lot of work. We put on there October 2014, but we want to work on getting that one accomplished also. Number 5, encourage and support the expansion of public infrastructure and services to meet the demands of existing and future targeted industries. Pretty self-explanatory. We do have, as you know, I've recommended in January, we come back with a workshop to talk about facilities and infrastructure needs. That will be the beginning of that process, and then what we can do going forward.
I have a
Yes.
question, back to the other one.
Yes.
That you just said about the underutilized commercial buildings or
Yes.
property. Would there be a conflict of interest? Like, say Carl and I, Wendy, we all are property owners, to put our businesses, our buildings on the?
We will have to look at that. There could be, yes. So we'll have to explore that and see.
Good
Yeah,
question.
Yeah, good comment, yeah. Number 6, identify and partner with various stakeholders to attract and retain priority businesses, implement collaboration team consisting of city, county, and chamber members to quickly respond to needs of potential businesses, assign peak chamber representative to participate in county economic development advisory committee, and invite a CDAC member to attend peak meetings. We have started that already. Actually, we have a couple of members that attend CDAC, and I'll mention that Councilmember Briley also attends CDAC, and I've been attending lately their meetings. So, yes.
I just have a question back to, actually, it kind of corresponds with Patty's, and that is, on the peak group themselves,
Yes.
there's a developer for one on there, and isn't that also a potential conflict?
It is, we have to be careful with that, but because of the fact that they are advisory only, they take no action and cannot
Okay.
benefit from that. It lessens that conflict opportunity.
Okay.
But we are very aware of that, and we'll watch that carefully. So, yeah. Goal number 2, enhance and diversify cultural and other tourism attractions. Objective, develop a united community tourism direction, including a focused strategy to advance the preservation and promotion of Placerville and the surrounding region's assets, and implement a tourism marketing promotional strategy. As you know, the Chamber already has a tourism strategy. We think, though, that we need to do something on our own and make sure that it works well with what the Chamber already has. So additional work on that. Strategy number 1, conduct a tourism conference for identifying the needs of the city of Placerville. Create a needs assessment document and distribute to city businesses, creating buy-in to a tourism conference. Consider length of conference and times to accommodate business needs. So that's basically to kick off and see what we want to do as far as a tourism strategy. So, number 2, prepare and implement a unified tourism marketing plan utilizing stakeholders, including the El Dorado Chamber, El Dorado County, El Dorado Arts Council, et cetera. And there's probably more that we add into that list. Strategy number 3, yes.
Well, I would make sure that on that list are the 3 business districts,
Very good, okay. Yeah.
and that they're actually spelled out, not
Okay.
just et cetera.
Okay. Thank you. Item 3, strategy 3, support current and ongoing efforts to produce special events and activities, promote and support existing and proposed events that bring increased value to the city. Item number 4, work with and support local entities in efforts to preserve and promote Placerville history, including Placerville Historical Advisory Committee, El Dorado County Historical Society. Again, probably others that we could look at there too. Strategy number, yes.
Is the Heritage Association still in existence?
Good question.
Marilyn Ferguson?
I
believe so.
think they are.
It's another
so-
one that I would,
Okay,
yeah, and the museum probably should be on.
okay. Okay. Strategy number 5, develop marketing program to actively recruit one or more motel/hotels on identified and approved hotel sites. We discussed that this one also could have been up under the business attraction and retention item. So it could fit into several of these different goals, but we wanted to make sure we had it in here in somewhere. So, goal number 3, enhance community identity, the look and feel of a great town. To grow and improve the wow factor for every person coming into our community by enhancing the great places, spaces, and walkability of the community. for people to enjoy. This is an objective that was already approved by you. I will mention, though, there's a few people who don't like adding the little wow factor in there. So just a note for you.
Well, I think my objection to that was a great town, because it makes it sound like it's just Placerville. I mean, downtown. And
Right.
like Carol said, there's 2 other districts, and so I don't know how that, we talked about that, I remember.
Right, but this, I think there was language in there that talked about, made it more specific to Old Town, and we've changed that now so that clearly identifies the community, which is, doesn't even necessarily define the city limits, so. Strategy number 1, establish community areas by uniqueness and interests. Those could be geographical, historical, natural separation, live, work, and play and learn. Strategy number 2, meet in community areas and receive input about the communities. And then strategy number 3 is create a web representation about each community area. Goal number 4, pursue new opportunities for businesses. Objective to grow existing, seek new, and diversify and enhance businesses, focusing on those that are compatible with our community to capture a greater share of business activity and economic hub in the western slope of El Dorado County. Strategy number 1, through the use of the Buxton ID program, identify and prioritize retail businesses for location or expansion. Number 2, based on the results of strategy 4.1, identify key parcels for locating priority retail businesses. That also goes back up to, you recall, under goal number 1, there was an item that talked about identifying those vacant and underutilized properties. 4.3, establish a proactive retail business recruitment program to attract those businesses identified in strategy 4.1. So those are all related, those 3. Yes?
So how does that, well, maybe you're going to get to it on the next slide, but I'm thinking, so is this targeting strictly the city limits of Placerville?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
There's additional information regarding that. Okay. Develop a program to redevelop or develop underutilized and undeveloped properties, including environmental work with potential for major development. Properties include, and we've listed some here, I want to emphasize this may not be inclusive of all of them. Shopping center at 1514 Broadway, the county fairgrounds, Ray Lawyer Drive, including its extension, and 455 Placerville Drive, which is the Oding property on Placerville Drive. We can list others on here, yes.
I do have a question on this.
Yes.
Love the idea of this, so we can move things forward. When you say including environmental work, what does that include, and who pays for that?
Well, that's a good question, and we need to because what I think we can do.
Look at Dave, just checking.
We need to look at, as we look at each one of those individually, it may be that we can begin to present opportunities for development through our cooperation and working with them, and maybe the owner is willing to do that. Maybe the new person that's potentially looking at coming in is willing to do that, depending on where it goes. And who knows, maybe there's properties where somehow we decide to do some public-private partnership where we're involved with funding some sort of environmental
So you're looking
work.
at kind of being a collaborative partner, perhaps, with those properties that have a lot of potential to, in the city.
Yes.
Okay, very interesting. I like it.
Number 5, explore properties within the city's general plan and surrounding sphere of influence for potential annexation to enhance opportunities for business development. Does that address what you were referring to, Carol, or?
Well, my question, I guess, is probably more, it's more global to the whole document, and that is this specific to the city itself, or, because there are, I mean, I'm going to just say it, that there's a lot of chamber people that are involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
And so my fear is that the city of Placerville gets diluted because we're looking at the more regional economic strategies. And it's not, I'm not saying that the regional strategies aren't important, but I was thinking that this document was going to be specific to the city, and then it could work collaboratively with the county chamber and the county economic development strategy. So that's my question about how does it?
Okay, and my answer to you is, yes, this is specific to the city and enhancing business opportunities that benefit the city and our residents.
Within
So
the
it
city
is.
limits.
Within the city, but for example, 4.5 goes beyond our city limits when it's talking about annexation.
sphere of
influence.
Yeah.
The
And-
sphere of influence, it exceeds the limits, so.
Right.
But it's
right.
pretty close.
But it's really.
But it's close. And again, those are things we wouldn't recommend or look at bringing a business into one of those general plan areas without requiring them to annex into the city. So eventually they would be in the city and benefit the city as we go forward.
Or, and this, it could be, we couldn't accommodate, maybe if we hear something we can't accommodate, if we could get them real close, it might be this cooperation
The
thing we
ancillary
talked about.
businesses.
Yeah, sure.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Dave. Goal 5, promote regulatory reform. The objective, work to identify and where feasible, streamline regulatory processes which potentially constrain the retention, expansion, or location of businesses in our community while providing consistency with the region and recognizing and maintaining high-quality design standards that reflect the image of Placerville. Number 1, review general plan policies to ensure consistency with the Placerville Economic Development Strategy. Number 2, review general plan land use map and update for consistency with Placerville Economic Development Strategy. Number 3, review planning and building policies and procedures and recommend changes for improvement. Yes.
So I would really like to know how that's going to work. So they're going to go, the Economic Advisory Committee comes forward with a suggestion on to change the building codes or building, and then is it going to go to the planning commission, or it'll go first to Mr. Rivas, or, I mean.
It depends on what it is that has to change. If it's something that required to go to the planning commission, then absolutely it has to go there. Now, this is not going to be just peak. For example, I'm trying to remember what I put as the responsible party on this, but this is going to heavily involve Mr. Rivas and his department in review and recommendation of what changes need to take place. So it's not just going to be Peak alone making those recommendations.
So, because that's what my fear is that then now Peak, this community advisory, is driving general plan changes. And I personally have a fear of that. So, I mean, maybe that's unjustified, I don't know. But I'd like to know that the city's department is really, really focused on what's the best interest for the city.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
Because the general plan is developed by community,
Right.
not by the Economic Advisory Committee.
Right. And just so you know, obviously, they have no authority to make a general plan amendment. And Mr. Rivas will head up that process, and he has that clear direction that he's looking for what is overall good for the community, not just from an economic development standpoint.
So if they come in and they want to make a suggestion to review the land use, then when does the community get a chance to voice their, because I'm going to go back to my first point, was that the community builds a general plan, not city staff. I mean, city staff certainly is integral in that, but the community does that, and it's made up of not just the businesses and the economic developments, but the residents who live here. And so I'm looking at this going, okay, it's being driven by economic interests, and so I want to know that somebody who has no business on Main Street or wherever is still going to like general plan, our city's general plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it does, absolutely. Number one, all of the peak meetings are open to the public and are advertised just like your council meetings are. They're open to the public, so they'll have that opportunity. But then also any land use changes is a pretty extensive process going through the planning commission and up. And that whole process will have to be followed for the public input going forward. So just as if the planning commission initiated it, any review that would be required to happen at the planning commission and the city council, the same process will have to be followed for anything that happens there. So
It really shouldn't item 5.2 say review of the general plan land use map and update for consistency with the economic development strategy and vice versa. In other words, it's not
Good
just
Right.
one, they're not
Yeah,
in
Every
control.
one of those is like, well,
Right.
1 and
Well-
2 are both like that. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
wait, the general plan has to reflect consistency with the peak strategy rather than peak reflecting
Good point.
the
But,
city's general
but I think it can say and/or. In other words, I think if there's areas of the general plan, land use maps that are in need of review,
Right.
to bring them up to current economic development proposals and ideas, we certainly shouldn't shy away from that.
Yeah.
Because there is a process to go through to change the zoning and amend the general plan. So it's just a long process and it's an expensive process to go through, but,
Right.
so there may be, an opportunity for them to work together. That's why I read that. I think it should say and/or, but.
The way I saw this is, personally, and kind of looking at what we've done, I don't see there being conflicts, but there's a possibility there are there. But the way I saw it and the way we put it together is review to make sure there is that consistency. If the consistency is not there, then we have to step back and either look at maybe revising our economic development strategy, or if it's determined in the best interest, we recommend a change to the land use policy. But it could go either way. This doesn't necessarily say that we change the general plan to meet our economic development strategy. It says we review that to ensure consistency. That could mean that we have to change our economic development strategy to meet the goals and plans of the policies of the general plan. So it can go either way.
Sure. Good questions, good points. Yeah.
Did you want to add that language in there, Councilmember Hagan?
No, I think the concept is correct, and I think it's just implementation. I don't think there's going to be any implementation issues. I understand that the Economic Development Committee is an advisory committee. They are unlike the Planning Commission, which is an appointed committee and has a regular agenda to go through. And in order to make any changes to the general land use, or even just to build a building anywhere in town, you've got to go to the planning department and through our process. And if, we're not saying to skirt any issues that go on it, but from an economic standpoint, so. Anyway.
And I don't think you're skirting any issues, but I think that item 5.3 is worded way better than 5.1 and 5.2. And the only difference is that you're saying the peak strategy recommends changes, rather than 1 and 2 that both say that Placerville's general plan ensures consistency with peak strategy. And I just personally believe that that's backwards.
Should be reversed.
And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that I believe that the general plan should have the should be the power center, and the economic strategy should certainly be able to make recommendations for improvement, but it shouldn't be the general plan being consistent with the economic strategy.
Right.
That's all.
And I think that was the intent of this. I understand where you're saying, and we can look at rewording
At clarifying that,
too,
rewording it.
so that I can see
So
how that wasn't the intent of it, but I can see how you read it.
'Cause
I
it
agree
does
with you,
say
Councilmember Patton.
It does say
Yeah.
update.
Update for
the-
consistency with
yeah.
peak strategy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
We'll
then
look-
my suggestion is we reverse them.
I would like to see it reversed. I would like to see
Okay.
it reworded.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Review peak strategy to ensure consistency with
With the
general plan.
plan,
With the
and
general-
and make recommendations
Okay.
as needed.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly. That's
good.
perfect.
We'll
That's
reverse
perfect.
those two.
Thank you.
Great.
Because we want them to make recommendations for the general plan if there's
Absolutely.
needs to be things
Sure.
that we need to adjust. Absolutely.
But I do believe that their strategy should be subsidiary
general
or
plan.
subsidiary.
Exactly.
In a role, a different
Right.
role than the general.
And our discussion was, I believe, went along those lines. That was the purpose of that item, to make sure that we weren't adopting goals that were inconsistent with
Right.
the general plan. It wasn't to necessarily say, now we have to change the general plan because of this goal. It was the opposite, but this didn't read that way, so. Number 6, explore opportunities to develop a health and wellness industry in Placerville. The objective, promote Placerville as a community of healthy lifestyles and work with medical providers and research companies to identify opportunities for expansion of the medical research and development and functional medicine industries. Number 1, convene a health and wellness community roundtable to discuss the possibility of a focused effort to expand and diversify the health and wellness offerings in Placerville. Number 2, identify areas of opportunity to expand existing health and wellness businesses in Placerville. Identify areas of unmet needs within the health and wellness industry as well. Number 3, identify opportunities to brand Placerville as a niche market for healthy lifestyles and a home to the health and wellness community. Number 4, identify available resources or the lack of available resources within and adjacent to Placerville required to nurture and grow the health and wellness industry in Placerville. And I think that's it.
It's huge. That is a ton of work that they've embarked on. My
It is,
goodness.
yeah. The last point I'd like to make, in my report, you'll note that I stated that through the remainder of this fiscal year, we'll be fine, but we're going to evaluate this. Some of these will require some funding to implement, and so we hope in this next coming budget that we'll be able to identify some of those costs and bring those back to you at that time. So.
Okay, great. And I know our lobbyist, Madeline, is continuing to send us economic development grants, and I assume we're continuing to look at opportunities for those?
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful, and how that fits with this strategy. Excellent. All right, any further? Yes?
I just wanted to
Councilmember
say I
Patton.
love the Christmas picture. Just FYI, of the wave of people.
Any other questions for Mr. Morris? No? All right. At this point, an open public comment. Would anyone like to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the council for further discussion and action. So you're actually looking for us to adopt this strategy this evening?
If you're comfortable with that, I would say adopt with the amendments.
With the amendment.
With the amendments and realizing that it's a flexible, fluid document that
Right.
can continue to move forward.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Higgins, seconded by Council Member Borelli. All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously with our extreme gratitude to the Placerville Economic Advisory Committee for all of their work on this and staff for all their support. With that, we're on item 12, council reports and requests for future agenda items. This time we'll start to my far right, Councilmember Patton.
Well, really, the only thing that I did that was really fun, well,
We don't need to go there.
was the parade. I thought the parade
that
and
fun?
It was wonderful.
The parade was a blast, and I really want to call out my thanks to Mr. Morris for making it happen, and to shout out to Ronnie Thompson for allowing us to use his very wonderful cars with no questions asked.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was really fun, and that the Festival of Lights was one of the best festival events that I've been to as far as the Festival of Lights goes. The weather couldn't have been better. The lights went off without a hitch, or went on without a hitch. Although there was some people shooting spotlights at them. And then most recently, last night, I had an emergency at my house with a broken water pipe, and I just wanted to shout out to the city crews. I called the dispatch, the police department's non-emergency number for dispatch, and within an hour or so, they were out, and that the dispatch woman was wonderful, and I just wanted to, I don't know who she was, but I just wanted to say thank you for whoever it was, and thank you to the young man who came out to the house to make sure that I was okay, and said that the sander would be there today to sand my driveway, which was like a sheet of ice. So that's about that's all, and I would like to take this time to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you. Councilmember Borelli.
Well, I also want to comment on the two items that Carol mentioned, because they were terrific. The tree lighting and the parade was just so much fun. And yes, thank God for the weather, that we didn't have what we've got right now.
Amen.
You know. And I attended SEDCOR over in Auburn, and attended the transit meeting and the transportation meeting, and and then I went to CDAC yesterday. We had a potluck luncheon there, and Cleve was there, Mr. Morris, and it was interesting. And he found out a lot about economic development there too, right? or and they presented what they've been doing for how they were formed and everything, so it was pretty interesting. Anyway, that was it, and I also want to thank our staff, our city crews, and everybody for all that they have gone through with this ice invasion that we've had. I know you guys have just been working day and night, and I appreciate it, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Patty. Vice Mayor Hagan.
Let's see. Obviously, parade, and enjoyed really doing the parade and partaking and actually, after we finished, I sat there on Main Street and watched all of the entries come through, and it was really great.
We had a handsome companion in our car too, didn't we?
Yeah, we had my grandson rode with us, and he had a great time.
He was so
I think
adorable. He had a little Marine uniform on.
So gorgeous.
He's still talking about that.
That was so cute.
I'm sure all the kids at school are. I asked him today if he'd mentioned it. He said, "Oh yeah." I reminded the kids there that I did that. And then let's see. On the 5th, we had EDCTC, so the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. Second reading on that, and then we also had SACOG meeting, or I had a SACOG meeting that morning. And then on Wednesday, the 6th, I believe it was, 4th, we had the Western Placerville Drive ribbon cutting for the on-ramp, and the mayor did such a great job on her speeches. I'm going to retain her next year if so elected as a speechwriter. Actually, I may be the speechwriter reader. Because I'm sure I won't do it justice.
And I'm sorry I had to miss that, but I was in Auburn. But today I used it.
Good.
There you go.
It was great. What a way to get out of town.
I'm going to work on that tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilkins.
So this parade also, but I want to give a thanks to Rick Dyer for driving us.
Yes.
And he volunteered with his hat, and he got us there without any stops or falling out, and so thank you to him. Wednesday, the ribbon cutting, that was for the new on-ramp. I attended that. And then Thursday the 5th, I came to the potluck here at Town Hall with the other city. Yeah. Also, I had a transit meeting, and I stayed for the transportation meeting, and then I was really honored that I was asked to help with a more benefit, the repeal prohibition, and that was the funnest thing that I've ever done. I got to get thrown in jail, and then people had to pay to bail me out, and it raised some money for a really good organization.
Careful how you say that.
Yeah.
And I got to do the Charleston.
Yeah. So did I. Yeah.
How fun. Well, thank you. Couple of highlights. A couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure, really, of taking part in a 2-day internal study mission with the Asian Chamber of Commerce in Sacramento. And what caught my attention on this is they actually were studying all the different regional assets of our area. And I think it's wonderful we go to different jurisdictions and study places so we can learn. But I was really taken that we were actually taking a hard look at our assets so we can better understand each other. And I loved that they ended their tour here in Placerville. And they met at the Smith Flat House for lunch and invited myself to speak as well as Laurel Brentbaum, and talked about the Farm to Fork movement and brought in Apple Hill and some of our local restaurateurs. And so I thought, if they're coming all the way up here, I need to participate in that too. And so we had a really great day, 2 days, studying our regional assets. And I love that they're finally considering us a regional asset. And that's kind of a change in thought down in the Sacramento region. So that just shows the importance of us, taking part and not being so, exclusive up here.
Wendy, did the Wakamatsu, I know that that's Japanese versus Chinese, but did that kind of, do you think,
No, it didn't. They
brought any encouragement?
They were really looking at Apple Hill and the Farm to Fork and our agricultural assets up here.
They're a very active group down
They are. It was pretty impressive. Yeah. Also, I've been meeting regularly with the Resident Council of Hangtown Haven, helping them move forward and helping look for the next phase. I've also been meeting with Dr. Reverend Mary Maga of Mercy Way Rescue, and we're having just fabulous discussions and kind of analyzing what worked in the pilot program and what didn't, so we can reach for the next step in our homeless solution. So I'm really enjoying those two visits that I'm continuing to do. We have a big meeting at the county this week, looking at the next step in the transitional homeless program, and I want people to know that we are on the forefront of this and collaborating very well with the county.
Is that an open meeting for?
No, it's county staff.
Okay.
Yeah, and appreciate all your efforts to get funding for the day shelter as well as the supporting the bus transportation. Really appreciate that. Thank you, city staff, for the potluck. I really enjoyed the winter potluck. Always a great time to get to know each other a little more and break bread with each other. And then last Friday, I had the privilege of speaking to an absolutely packed house here at a town hall of third graders from Sutter's Mill School. And I couldn't believe, this was a packed house. And I had the task of explaining local government to a crowd of third graders, and they were just wonderful. And I'll have to say, Chief, your officers and sergeants that came right behind me talking about, what our police department do, and they brought the dog, and they stole the show. And the officers did a fabulous job engaging this group, and it was really a fun thing to do. So it's always a privilege. So, and I did not dance. I did dance at the bell tower for the Toys for Tots, though, and that was really fun. Yeah. So it's been a busy couple of weeks. We have no items pulled from the consent calendar, and then we have some really good news. And Mr. Warren, you get to announce that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This may sound strange, but I have some good news about the city's water rates.
Lay it on us.
As you know, we purchase water from EID, and recently EID announced that they were reducing their water rate increase from 11% to 5%. The other good news is over the past 18 months, the city has experienced favorable water consumption. Folks are using more water. It's been a little hotter.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they're using more water. And we originally planned on recommending a rate increase to you tonight. However, due to EID's reducing its rate increase to 5% and favorable water consumption here at the city, we've done the analysis, and based on our forecast, we can absorb the 5% increase within your water enterprise fund budget. And with the favorable water consumption, we can demonstrate a balanced budget with a healthy contingency for the remainder of this fiscal year. So we're not going to recommend an increase in water rates for now. We will be coming back to you probably late March, early April to talk about a rate increase for the following year. But for right now, we're not recommending an increase.
Well, that is a wonderful Christmas present that we can not raise water rates and hold them steady. And thank you, EID, and that's just wonderful. And thank you, Measure H, the Water Enterprise Fund. That is really, really good news. Thank you for that. And any other comments? No? All right. Well, with that, my
Madam
goodness.
Mayor,
Yes,
I'm sorry. I do have two quick reports that I'd like to make.
I am so sorry. Please, Mr. Rivas.
Thank you. The first item is in regards to the Sacramento Street Skyline Drive Cellular Communication Tower, and that's authorized under a conditional use permit. That has been sort of an issue with the council for quite some time. So the Development Services Department is pleased to report that the issues concerning landscaping maintenance in conjunction with the conditional use permit has been resolved. Staff has inspected the site. The landscape plants have been reestablished to conform with the approved landscape plan, consistent with the approved conditions of approval. The weeds and debris have been removed from the site. A landscape maintenance agreement has been recorded, and a construction permit for the approved work that was subject to the conditional use permit 1008 was issued. And the work includes modification of the existing 60-foot lattice tower, adding a 5-foot extension, adding 9 antennas, coax cables, 1 new ground cabinet within the existing facility for AT&T Wireless. The approved construction is expected to be completed by the end of January of 2014.
Wow, that's been an issue we've been working on for a couple of years. That's wonderful that we have the resolution on that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
How about water? Did that get straightened out? They were saying that they didn't have water up there, so they couldn't, therefore. Landscape?
I'm making an assumption, though, that they resolve that, because the landscaping is in, and it's in compliance, so I'm assuming it's either xeriscape or it's irrigated.
They did do it? Okay, great.
And then
That's great.
I
Thank
believe
you.
there was also a condition that they remove the inactive antennas, because typically in the past, they've just abandoned them and left them on site. In other words, you don't know which ones are working and which ones aren't when you look at the tower, but they just keep adding new, and they don't do anything with the old. So I think that, if nothing else, we should get some kind of a report back when they're done with this construction work that, which ones are active and which ones aren't. And then we can go up and do target practice for the city police department to see if they're really telling the truth.
That was a condition, Carl, that they
I know.
remove those old ones.
I know. Just want to make sure it was done.
Okay, we can certainly take a look at that and report back to you on those two items, both the
great.
irrigation and whether the inactive antennas are still remaining on the
Sounds
tower.
great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Oh, you're very
appreciate that.
welcome. And I have one last item, and that's in regards to the 2013-2021 housing element update, the Cycle 5 update. If you recall, at the last time staff reported to the council was November 12th, and we provided you with a timeline. It was a very aggressive timeline in order to basically hopefully bring the draft element to you for adoption by February so that we can maintain the 8-year cycle as opposed to defaulting to the 4-year cycle. So as you're aware, these updates have been completed. Staff has addressed the comments received from the State Department of Housing and Community Development's comments that are dated October 9th of 2013. And the city's administrative draft housing element update is done and is now being circulated. The Planning Commission will consider and make recommendations to the council on January 7th on the draft housing element and the negative declaration initial study that's prepared for the update. The council consideration of the Planning Commission recommendation is tentatively scheduled for public hearing at your January 28th, 2014 meeting. By statute, the city has until February 28th of 2014 to adopt the housing element for the 2013-21 planning period cycle. So what I'm going to provide you is a packet that contains both the draft housing element, the draft negative declaration and initial study prepared for the housing element update, the October 9th, 2013 letter from HCD, which you previously received on November 12th, but we wanted to make sure you have it as you're reviewing the draft document. And the public notice that we provided to the public on dated January 7th, 2013 public hearing of the Planning Commission, and the notice of intent to adopt a negative declaration for the housing element update. So I'll go ahead and pass those out to you. I know it's cold and icy. You're probably not going out. This will give you something to read.
Some light holiday
Enjoy.
reading.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Well, that is no small task to get that ready. What's that? Test, all right. We're so on it. Thank you so much. That's exciting to see that it's getting to this point. This is really important, and we appreciate all your efforts. That's not an easy thing.
And I do want to really commend the staff. I mean, there was a lot of really hunkering down getting this thing out, a lot of work. We had to really prioritize in order to make this schedule. So, we got some really good staff out there that pumped this out.
Well, we will give it the proper reference, so thank you so much, and we look forward to reviewing it. It's an important document. And with that, I think we are going to cancel the December 24th City Council meeting. I think that's a really good recommendation. And the next regular council meeting will be held on January 14th, 2014. That sounds strange. 5 p.m. closed session, 6 p.m. regular session. And on that agenda will be include the second readings of these two proposed ordinances at this point. And just wish everyone just a very, very Merry Christmas, a happy holiday season, and may it be a bountiful, blessed new year for everyone. So thank you so much. Good night, Placerville.